That broken down and defeated, detergent, busy and confused, sleeping. You're dying while I wait you to get started. On the journey chosen, wasted, no one selected. I was so bad, what happened? Fall out of the sky. Crush me in my smile. I was so bad at what happened. Fall out of the sky and crush me in my smile. Sober, sad and jaded. They're not coming, they're broken down and defeated. You are dying while I wait you to get started. You are dying while I wait you to get started. I was so bad at what happened. Fall out of the sky, yeah. Crush me in my smile. I was so bad at what happened. Fall out of the sky and crush me in my smile.
I'm a motherfucking unicorn, a one-of-one. Divide being the love and light, then light and one. My karma is interstellar, I live by truth. Fighting evil, my scars are living proof. Protecting you from the storms with all my might. Love me, I will treat you right. You ever cross me, it's the last thing you'll ever do. With my crown of thorns, I'll wreck you. I ain't playing, yo, Bryan hard, call me a saint. Too bad Chris, because Bigfoot knows my name. I'm a messenger of God, with loyalty I serve. Taking out all evil with his holy word. A true Knights Templar, sword in hand. Slice you up, bury you in the sand. I'm a motherfucking unicorn, you'll never find anyone like me. Born in the Bronx, raised in NYC. So listen up, take heed. I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. A true Knights Templar, sword in hand. Slice you up, bury you in the sand. I'm a motherfucking unicorn, you'll never find anyone like me. Born in the Bronx, raised in NYC. So listen up, take heed. I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Hello, welcome to Third Eye Live. Actually, coming from the Bronx. I'm in the Bronx right now. I don't want to be in the Bronx right now, but it is the home of rap. It is also the only borough, part of New York City, that is attached to continental United States. Everything else is an island, and when it sinks, it's going to go bye bye. And if my predictions are even remotely close, and they've been pretty good, um, we're going to have a significant earthquake this summer. And I hope because I'm here, I hope I'm wrong. I don't want anybody to get hurt, but that's what I've been saying. Um, so I don't want to be in New York City any more than you want me to be there. I want to be in a different place, in a different studio, the free state of Florida. Actually, in Palm Beach County, where someone who is our guest tonight, a wonderful friend of mine, um, is going to be on in a minute. Mark Eddy will co-host tonight. He's getting his clothes on. He went to his cryptid. I don't know if he's doing a cryptid class or he's hunting cryptids, but we'll find out from Mark in a few minutes. But our guest is out of this world, incredible, unless she's buying real estate and or giving real estate. We'll get into it. I know her from one of our friends' show, Cisco, Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal podcast, who is like a sister to me. And I used to see her on there, and I'm like, when I saw her on the Three Beards when she came on, I was like, why do I know this name? Why do I know this pretty face? Why do I know? I mean, like, I know this person, and I do. And I'm not even going to waste any more time. Oh, you have family on Long Island. I hate driving out there. I'm welcoming to the studio the one and only Lynn Monèt. Lynn, welcome
Hi.
to Third Eye Live.
Hi. Thank you so much, Brian. Oh, and I agree with you about the earthquake thing, but part of Florida is going to go underwater too.
Well,
Yeah.
there's
And
been a
Washington
lot.
and Oregon and part of California. Yeah. And
Well,
the Mississippi River is supposed to spread open and take out most of Louisiana and go
yeah, I
on up
mean,
through the Great
where I
Lakes.
am in Palm Beach County, I technically will be underwater.
I'm from
So,
Palm Beach County.
yeah, Palm Beach County. I think we're born and raised. Well, we'll
I
get
was
to.
I was born in Sarasota, and when I
Oh,
was 2 years old, my father moved over to Boynton Beach, which
Boynton
is
Beach.
Boynton Beach. Yes, I went to and my father was a math professor at FAU, and also he was at Palm Beach Junior College at the time. That's what it was called. Then it went to Palm Beach Community College. So he did, but worked at both places. So, and that's where I grew up. I went to even college there. That's where I went. So yeah.
I could have. My daughter just applied to FAU, University of Florida,
Mm-hmm.
Florida State University. They had a coach named Bowden, a distant relative, and a couple other state schools. She's going on the West Coast. I'm not going to mention the school because I don't need her harassed or bothered. But um, getting into school this year, there was like 17,000 seats or 24,000 seats, and there's like over 300 kids applying for college. It's the most um, kids applying for college ever. And she was rejected. And you know what it's, I mean, I remember those days like, oh, nobody even had a safe school. So it's just crazy. But yeah, I think, I don't know if that's coming up. It's coming sooner to Florida, like than later. But I think I'll have a couple more years before I, uh, have to buy scuba gear. um, Not so much with California. I still see the earthquake, major earthquake in Alaska, almost fracturing the state, and that may cause with that between that and the underground volcano, super volcano right now off the coast by the subduction zone. I've been saying this about California for the longest time on the West Coast. So even in parts of Canada and parts of Mexico, we're going to have a problem. Where they're going to
Oh
have a
yeah.
problem, and people in Arizona is probably going to have beachfront property. But before we get back into all this crazy stuff, I know you, but they may not know who Lynn is. So can you give me I guess, who's Lynn Monèt? the bio thing for the people that don't know who you are.
Oh, wow. Okay. Just a quick bio. I am a author. I've got 5 books out currently. I've got a 6th one that's getting ready to release any day. I am the author of the Omnipresent series, which is going to end up being a 5-book series, as well as Colors of Heaven and the Gap. I've got a lot of other things that I'm planning on writing coming up in the future. I originally born and 2 years old and raised until I was 35 years old in Palm Beach County. I was a runway model in Palm Beach. I did modeling at the Breakers, and I was with an agency there. I also did the ad for Lenote, which was a very la-di-da hotel, kind of on the intercoastal in Lantana area, I guess they would call it. So anyway, kind of got my start that way. I went to nursing school. I've been a nurse for 40 years. I have since retired. So I'm doing the retired thing, sort of, because I'm still doing the author thing and a lot of other things. And I am back in school. I'm getting ready to, in the next month, complete my Mace Energy class. I will be a practitioner doing that as well. So currently I'm streaming on Gaia with George Norrie on Beyond Belief. I've also recently done YFF news. I was on the news recently with them, talking about my books. In addition to that, I've got coming up some things with Ground Zero. They've been looking for a female host, so they've asked me to do it, and it's going to be going out to over 600 radio stations and broadcasts all over Canada and the United States. So I'm looking forward. I'll know more about that the end of the month of June. Otherwise, I'm a mother of 3. I had a late life baby at 46. I kind of attribute the fact that, now that she's a teenager, that changes. No, she's a really good kid. But, attribute some of the lines off my face. I'm thankful for that. And having that pregnancy late in life, it did that. And other than that, I have obviously a degree in nursing, but I also have a degree in biology. And I'm a certified death doula. And if anybody wants to know what a death doula is, it's a death midwife.
That blew me away on your bio. I mean, I didn't know everything. It's not like you give a bio to by the way, this is my pedigree. How did you get involved in that? Because that's pretty intense stuff.
It is being a nurse for 40 years. 17 of that was in end-of-life care, I also was in management for a large insurance company for 3 years. But before that, in between that and the regular nursing, I was 17 years in end-of-life care and geriatrics, which I love. I love older people. And seeing some of the things that I've seen at the time of people's passing that have been consistent, I decided to write a book on that to share, to hopefully help make the stigma of death and dying to be taken away, with people to have an understanding, because truly death should be celebrated and not aggrieved, for that matter. So in doing that, I wanted to do something more so that I had a certification, so that it would just give people more comfort, more faith in me, I guess, in that way, that I'm not just some lady coming to their house talking, out of my butt, lack of a better word. So I went to school to become a death doula, and the death doula encompasses not only the person passing. It's not hospice. It's different than hospice. It's hospice on steroids. I don't come in and do the medication part. I come in and when the time comes of the transitioning, I kind of keep the family comfort level down so the energy is good in the room. I also talk to them prior to about their end-of-life directives and getting that in order in ways that they can do it for free, that they don't need an attorney, and it is just legally as effective. And I kind of walk through that because sometimes people don't know what the difference between a power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney is. So I help them with things like that. And because family's not comfortable with talking with family about those sorts of things. Everybody's like, oh, no, don't talk about that. You're going to be fine. But really, the person that is actively in a transition, they do want to talk about it. And not only that, going into people's homes where somebody maybe has been diagnosed with terminal illness with a different outlook on it. Most people, they get if they've been diagnosed with a terminal illness, I'll come to their house. They'll be laying in their bed with their knitted beanie on their head, curled up in fetal position, just waiting for death. And I'm like, oh no, this
Yeah.
right here, this is your opportunity to get your things in order, to make sure that the roof is repaired for the people that you're leaving behind. Or if you've got money hidden in the backyard, it's time to give your wife driving lessons if she doesn't know how to drive. It's time for you, to, do whatever you want. If you want to make an amends with somebody or leave notes for people. And I've actually come to people's houses after I've been in that situation. They'll greet me at the door and they're all dressed and shaved and they got their cologne on and they're happy to sit down. And they realize that time is of the essence because we don't die. Death has such a finality on this earth. We simply shed our meat suit and we go on. We are energy. Our bodies are literally electric and water inside of a meat suit. But spiritually, we do go on. You've heard this over and over, and many, many people that have had near-death experiences. I actually see people that leave their bodies at the time of death, and the loved ones that come and collect them. And I want to express this for comfort measures for people. A lot of times people are concerned that if they are not present at the time of their loved one's passing, they feel guilty that, oh my God, mom passed away in her sleep and there was nobody there with her. I'm telling you, you never, ever pass away alone. There is such a huge spiritual family of loved ones that come in to collect your loved one and help them over. And they connect with them even beforehand. As a person's going through that transition stage, the filters efface and they can hear the telepathy as well as they can of the angels and spirits, as well as they can hear the verbalization of the people that are in physical form. So a lot of times it's kind of neat because if somebody's in that stage, you can actually ask somebody that's already passed a question and they can answer through that person. However, you need to make sure the spirit is in the room and ask one question at a time and allow them to answer. So it's very, I have a story about that actually, if you'd like me to share it, about Edna.
Please do.
Okay. Edna, Edna was on my unit for about 2 weeks. She was, and she was in the active state of transition, and her son and daughter come to the nurse's station and they say to me, Mom's talking to people in the room that aren't there. Now, Edna had been blind for 10 years, totally blind, no shadows, no sparkles, no nothing. It was like nothing. So, of course, I expected this because I knew that loved ones do, come in to, help the loved ones transition over, as I'd mentioned. But so I was actually going down to the patient's room to comfort the son and daughter more so than Edna, because I knew that Edna was fine. So I said, well, let me walk down to your mama's room with you and see if I could do anything to make her more comfortable, repositioning her or something. And so when we walk into the room, of course, everybody's always laying at a slant. And she was laying there with her head cocked and she was reaching into the air as if something that was being handed to her was very delicate, like she was handling a snowflake. It was that delicate. And she was smiling and she was very happy with whatever it was they were handing to her that she was reaching out for. And I said to Edna, Edna, who's here? And she immediately says, George. And her daughter had to sit down. She turned as white as a sheet and sat down. And she says, George is my father. And my father passed away X amount of years ago. And then all of a sudden, Edna pipes in and she interrupts and she says, and he's glad you're taking good care of Pixie. Pixie was Edna's poodle. When George passed away, her son had to take possession of Pixie the poodle because Edna couldn't care for the dog anymore, being blind. Pixie was still alive. She was like a 15-year-old dog at that point, so an elderly dog. And the son told me the story about Pixie. And then he said to me, do you think that my mom's hallucinating? And I said, well, do you think she's hallucinating? Because, of course, I'm in a professional setting, that's all about big pharma and giving pills for anything that is set off beat type thing, and a pill for the side effects of that pill, and on and on and on. It's a vicious cycle. So I had to turn it around, and he says, well, I don't know. And I said, well, do you mind if I try something? I'm not trying to change your religious beliefs if you have any. I'm not trying to change the way that you think. However, it's been my experience as a nurse that loved ones do start to come in to collect, their love, to help the loved ones cross over during this time. And I said, do you mind if I try something? And he said, he shook his head that I could go ahead. And I asked Edna, I said, Edna, can I ask George a question? Hey, from South Carolina. Hi, Margie. she's my buddy. I'm going to see her this weekend. Actually, I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
Yeah, there's an event that we're having. I'll tell you about that too at the end, so that people can go.
Yes.
You're going to have a person from Walking Dead there. I'm going to be there. Margie's going to be there. Lee Triana is going to be there. A whole bunch of people that you know and that the community knows. So anyway, I asked Ed and I said, what color? First of all, I asked Edna if I could ask George a question. She nodded yes. And I said, what color is your son's shirt? And Edna said yellow. He was wearing a short sleeve yellow Ralph Lauren polo shirt. Now, Edna, being blind, couldn't know that.
Couldn't see it. Yeah.
And then the argument being too is, how does a person hallucinate when they're blind? So George being there, she could see George. George was talking to her. And the medical field was assuming that it was hallucinations, but a blind person can't hallucinate. It's impossible. So that really brought it home for me. And that's one of my favorite stories to tell if anybody's got a doubt in the mind. But during that time of transition, when I asked George what color the yellow shirt was, people don't realize if they can be more even with their emotions during the time, because emotions do play in a lot.
Big time.
Yeah, when the spirits come in from the other side, and the angels, and even there are other things on the other side too. I've seen some things that don't look like they're from here, but they're still very beautiful, and I'd be happy to talk about that down the road. But they, what was I saying?
The emotion of people at the point of death.
Yeah, it's important that if you stay neutral, because when those beautiful beings, their frequencies are so high, they elevate your frequency. So in that moment, whatever emotion that you're having, it amplifies it. So they don't want to come in and amplify your sorrow and your sadness, type thing. They want, they can come in and amplify your joy and things like that. So sometimes they kind of stand back a little bit, and they will have someone else, like maybe escort the other person out of the room, like say, oh, come with me to go get a soda, because somebody's whispering in their ear, so that they can come forward for other people if they want to. But it's an opportunity for you to ask Uncle Bob what he did with the clock,
Yeah,
and then get an answer.
It's really, really strange. Here's the fun part tonight with Lynn. Lynn knows. Unlike Cisco, who I love to death like a sister, I'm not going to fight Lynn for the mic. So it's your show. Fighting Cisco sometimes is tough, but we all have our talking points. But it's very interesting. Like I do what I do, and when my uncle passed away, he was in the hospital. I saw his. I believe it was his mother and father, and they were there, and I told my cousin, your dad has a choice to make, because he was at a point where he has a choice to make. And he didn't tell them that, there were other issues, but he chose to pass away. And I saw him being received by his parents. And I had a third party, I asked, I'll pay for it. And my cousin wanted to know, because he passed away in the room with her. So it's like, why did he pass away with me? Why? There's a lot of these why questions, because basically you could handle it. And there are some people, like you said before, if you have relatives on the other side and they know that your constitution isn't at the right spot, they'll have a nurse come in and say, oh, honey, let me get you some water. And their nurse is unaware that they're being manipulated to a degree. And they bring you out, and then they pass away. Some people don't want to pass away in front of you. When my grandfather passed away, my grandmother never slept. He woke up, he wasn't feeling well. Oh, she said, go back to sleep. When if you feel better in a few minutes, we'll go to the hospital, the doctor. And that night after he woke her up, she slept. And that was his, if you really want to know, a gift to her, that she didn't have to go through the whole, listening to him die at that point. That still bothers me. But there are other points where, like when my grandmother passed away, who was more of a mother to me, um, you know, she um, she was a quadriplegic. She fell down. Unfortunately, my mother hired a Jehovah's Witness to be her aide,
Oh
and they
no.
will not call 911. They should not. If you're, no disrespect to them, believe what you want to believe, but you should not be in an aid position because you're not going to administer or call 911. I mean, when we heard she fell down the stairs, call 911. Oh, I should call 911. I mean, like, whatever. So that was infuriating. So when they were deciding, my mother and my brothers, whether or not to pull the plug on her or she'll be a quadriplegic, I went in the room and I was talking to her, and she's wrapped up like a mummy. And I told her what happened. I said, if you need to go, you can go. We'll be fine. We love you, and you'll be fine. But because she was too independent, and a tear came down her eye, and she blinked. And I said, if you have to go, you can go. And I went over. I gave her a kiss on the head, and she passed away right in front of me. So then when I walked back in the room, I'm like, you don't have to worry about it. Like, well, we have to decide. I said, no, she decided herself. I didn't see any family members at that point, but it was a tough thing to do for me. And I have a better constitution, but I knew it would be a better place. That's the difference. Is some people can't handle the death aspect of a loved one, even if they don't have a great relationship with their family member. You know.
That is very true. Yeah, and the
And,
thing is too is that, oh, I'm sorry.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
no,
Go ahead.
no. I'm thankful that they have people like yourself to kind of help them deal with it. In the right way.
Well, the thing is too is a lot of times people get freaked out when the loved one that's transitioning starts talking about a loved one that's in the room that everybody knows. Like Uncle Bob, their favorite uncle, and even though they're just talking to Uncle Bob because it's a dead person, they get freaked out, and a lot of that is conditioning. You grow up as a child. A lot of kids, the filters don't start to go into place until like almost 6 years old. And when they start to, block some of that out, but they're very open during those first 5 years. And it's so important. And a lot of times they see things, they've got their invisible friend. They do see things. And a lot of times parents, because of conditioning, say, oh, well, if there's nothing there. Well,
Right.
the kid can clearly see something standing next to you. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. So I'm
It,
hoping that people will start handling their children even differently with these situations, with some of the knowledge that everybody there are a lot of people that are shifting. So they're shifting for the better. And with that shift, hopefully they'll understand it better.
yeah, everybody thinks I'm nuts in my family, but like you talk about crazy stuff, but it's really funny how you said that. You don't necessarily have to pass away to know that your family member is there. I remember I stayed at a hotel in Florence. That's my halfway point if I'm driving up and back. And there was a lovely woman there that's at the front desk, and I've been in a couple of rooms in the hotel, and I said, "Oh, we're going to put you in." I think it was like 109. I said, "Do me a favor, uh, don't put me in 109." Like, why? It's a king size bed. I said, it's haunted, and it doesn't stop. If they know that you have an ability to hear them, and it kept opening the fridge and closing the fridge and opening I'm like, can you please stop? I'm trying to get some sleep. I'm not going to talk to you. I want to sleep. And she was like, they looked at me, and I said, yeah, it got into it, right? And I told them what I can do, whatever my abilities are, and they were a little bit taken back. And this woman had her father. I said, you have a very, very large man standing around, like this, buffing up the chest over I was facing her, so it would be her right shoulder. And he looks like, don't mess with this woman. And I'm going to say it's either your dad or your granddad. And her eyes widened. She goes, and I described them. She goes, can you describe more? And I described the hair and the features. And she's like, that's my dad. I said, yeah, well, he wants you, he's there with you right now. watching over and protecting you. And then it freaked her out a little bit. But, I stepped outside, I had my cigarette, and I came back in and I said, because he gave me a message at that point. He was one of those guys like, all right, I got it. I'm backing up. But he came over and he said, tell her to look out for Michael. I said, okay. I'm standing smoking and I got it. And I said it actually internally. No, I will. And I went in there. I said, he gave me a message and he wants you to take care, look out for Michael. And she's looking and she goes, like light breaks on you on the window. It's like, oh my God. Like that's okay. I got it. I understand. So it's just great that happens. And I mean, it's wonderful to have you do that, but you're really straddling that line because as a professional in the medical industry, you can't just say there are ghosts all around you.
Well, I did once.
Well, doesn't it get you in trouble?
It didn't. This is a beautiful lady, and if I share the story, I would love to. Would you like to hear it?
I will hear everything. I think everybody would love to hear it. We're going to also, by the end of tonight, we're going to be talking about the Fae a bit. And Lynn has a bunch of books, and we'll flow with Lynn. But you're going to see some Fae pictures, which are really, really cool. So we'll put those up too.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
I actually had a client that came in. I call her Abigail in my book, and she and her husband came in because the husband's health was failing, and the facility that I worked for had the 3 levels of care, and I was in the skilled unit, which was the 3rd level of care, the most extreme, the highest level of care, and they had no children, and both of them were only children themselves, so they had no relatives. Each other was all that they had. And it was a very high-end, expensive place. So, I mean, it was a beautiful place that a lot of very wealthy people, affluent people came to. And it just so happened that Abigail slipped and fell and fractured her hip. And she was placed on my unit post-surgery for, hello there. Nice to meet you.
That's Mark Eddie.
Hi, Mark. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, Lynn's telling us a story, so we'll fill you in a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, Edna, there was one morning that I came in, I had gotten a report and they were going to be discharging her. I was working midnights, a Baylor shift midnights on the weekends at that point. So I was a single mom at the time. I would stay at home at mom with my kids during the week and did that sort of thing. But anyway, I came in on my shift and it was the evening. I took her nighttime meds and she said to me, she said, Lynn, she said, do you think I'm crazy? And I had built up a rapport with her. She was one of my, you're not supposed to have favorites, but she was. I couldn't help it. I just loved this very vivacious, beautiful woman. And I said to her, I said, define crazy. I was teasing her, So she said, no. She said, I mean crazy, crazy. And I'm like, well, no, of course not. Why would you say something like that? And she said, well, I see my parents. She said, and the doctors are putting me on medication for hallucinations, and I don't want to have that take away me seeing my parents. I know that both of my parents are deceased, but I see them and it makes me happy. And she was afraid that the medication was going to negate that. And I told her, I said, well, as your advocate, you don't have to take the medication. You can say no. Number one, I said, and number two, you're going to be discharged in the morning back to your apartment. So when you get there, I'm not telling you that you can do whatever you want. You're supposed to do whatever the doctor says, but you can do whatever you want. Wink, wink, kind of thing. I said, and, so
Right.
she was thrilled with that. And she went back to her apartment. But lo and behold, she then was diagnosed with a terminal illness and she was declining quickly. And she was placed back on my unit. And now that she was on my unit again, not only was she talking about seeing her parents, but she was also talking about seeing this little girl and this woman that would come to visit her. So this one day I ended up volunteering to work a day shift for a friend of mine that needed the day off. And all of the patients are being placed back in the room. And the thing about Abigail is that she was bringing cakes and cookies from the dining room to her room to be a hostess to give to the little girl and the woman when they come to visit. And of course, this was creating a bug problem. So we had to check her for food when her purse and everything for food when she'd leave the dining room. And so this particular day, all of the patients had come back. It was around lunchtime. They just finished lunch, and I'm pushing my treatment cart down the hallway to start my dressing changes and things like that. And I passed Abigail's room, and the door was opened. And the way that the rooms were set up, they had a large picture window with an air conditioner underneath, kind of like the American hotels for anybody that's watching from outside of the country. And
Right.
Abigail was sitting in a recliner in the corner, and she's leaning forward, and she's got this yellow wrapped piece of butterscotch candy that she's leaning forward with. And I'm walking past, and I see this little girl and this woman standing directly behind the little girl. The woman had black hair parted down the middle. It was long and straight. She had on a white peasant blouse, a denim skirt that was almost past her knees, almost to her ankles. The little girl that stood in front of her had the same black hair, bangs, long hair. She had on a light blue dress with a pinafore, little Mary Jane shoes, lacy socks, very, very cute little girl. And when Abigail was leaning forward, she was offering the candy to the little girl. So, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, how nice. Abigail's got some visitors today. Usually nobody ever comes in to see her. And I passed the room, and I'm like, well, hey, wait a minute. I don't remember seeing those people come past the nurse's station. So
Right.
I backed up, and I knocked on the door, because legally you have to have a head count of people in the building just in case there's an emergency that happens. So the fire department knows how many people they have to get out.
Yep.
So I back up and I knock, and she asks me to come in, and I step into the room, and there's nobody there. Well, I mean, I'm standing there, and I'm watching, and I see this energetic waffling to the air, which the way that I see spirits is I can see them as clearly as I see you in my peripheral vision. I can tell you even eye color if they're close enough, what they have on. Yes, people, they do show up in clothes. Well, one ghost didn't. I have a picture of that. That's coming out in my next book that's coming out in a couple of days. I call him Weenie Man because he at least covered his Johnson for the picture. But most of the time, people, they come forward because if you're transitioning and your loved ones are coming in, and mom comes to the side of your bed to help you, pass over, and she's naked. I mean, everybody be like, Mom, put some clothes on. Nobody wants to see mom naked. So when I see them that they're in front of me, they're more opaque. Similar to like if you're in a mall parking lot and you're walking from your car to a store with a big plate glass window and you see your own reflection in it, they kind of look like that to me. But when they're very, very close, they look like a wavering to the air, like gas fumes or hot vapors off of a road. So I'm looking and I'm seeing the waffling of energy to the air. And yes, people, we are energy. Scientifically, energy can't be created or destroyed.
Yes,
it
we
just
are.
changes form. So I'm looking. So I know that the spirits are still there. And Abigail speaks up and she says to me, she says, I want you to meet my friends. Isn't the little girl beautiful? And I said, yes, she is. Abigail's eyes get big and she says, can you see them? And I said, yes. And she says, don't tell anybody because they'll put you on medication and think you're crazy, type thing. So here this woman now was so heavily medicated for hallucinations, but because they weren't hallucinations, she was still seeing them, but she had the wherewithal to know the difference, to not talk about it anymore so that they didn't stick her on more drugs. So I told her that I could see them too, and that I had also seen her parents visiting her in the past, but that this needed to be a secret between her and I. So we kept that secret, and she passed about a month later or so. And there was a very beautiful thing that happened when she did pass. I came on shift. She'd been kind of rallying, which is a stage medically where they're in that transitioning state where sometimes they, it kind of is like the lights are on, but nobody's home, because sometimes their eyes are even halfway open and their feet, are kind of, but all of a sudden they perk and their feet, toes, go up, their eyes brighten, and they start talking about things that they see on the other side, like even babies that haven't been born. I've got so many things, even an Alzheimer's lady. So I walked in and she was resting. She had her eyes closed, and I stroked the inside of her arm and I said, hi, Miss Abigail, it's Lynn. I'm here to check your blood pressure. And she opens her eyes and she says, I'm so glad that I get to see you one more time. And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I'm going home tomorrow. My parents are coming to get me, and I'm going to go home tomorrow. Well, I knew what that meant. I
Yeah.
knew that because a lot of times people know when their time to pass is coming. So anyway, I said to her, I said, you beautiful lady. I kissed her cheek. I said, thank you so very much for coming into my life and letting me be part of your healthcare team. And she said, and I want to tell you something. You're very much loved on the other side. And this still makes me cry. She says, and you need to keep doing what you're doing. And I said, you know what? We're going to see each other again. And she said, we most certainly will. And lo and
Yep.
behold, I was off the next night, but at around 10 o'clock, I could feel her so strong saying, I made it home. And when I called into a friend of mine and I said, did Abigail pass last night? And she said, yes, at around 10:30. And the thing is too, that I want to mention is a lot of times there are three different kinds of death. Of course, there are the near-death experiences. There are the natural death, like what most of us have. And then there's also sudden death, the three, and they're all handled differently on the other side. But the thing is that with a natural death, a lot of times the soul will leave the body even a day in advance. Sometimes they leave early and let the body just finish. Other
Yep.
times they will stay until the last minute. And I know this because my sister, I saw her leave 35 minutes before her physical body stopped, but my mother stayed in until the last minute. And I know this for a fact because my mother was a stinker, but she wanted
Tough
to
as
hear
nails,
everything.
or just tough as nails, or a pain in the you know what.
She was
A little
a,
of each.
yeah, she was a sweet pain of yeah, she could pull out the nails too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but anyway, I knew this because even though she was in that transitioning state and she was no longer able to verbalize and her eyes were not opening, when people would come into the room and say, hi, Phyllis, she would respond by moving her eyebrows and mouthing words like, and it was appropriate. So when her time came to pass, when the spirits came and I saw all of this, I'll be happy to share that with you too, if you'd like, which is where I also saw things from the other side when she passed and that whole Wally faced and opened up.
It's really interesting. You just reminded me, like, I had a dear friend. I met him at work, a bunch of years younger than me. And during COVID, I mean, we would talk for hours, like literally 3, 4 hours, and we'd have these deep conversations about everything because he liked to do photography. He'd take these road trips. Very introverted, but really a wonderful human being. And we just became like it's like meeting a family member. I can't describe it other than like a brother. And during COVID, he kept on talking about you have these dreams and he's surrounded by fire and he can't get out and it's dark and he's thinking it's demons. So he started praying more. He went to praying, and then he would pray at the foot of his bed, and he'd feel this, like he said, it's like a vibration and a tingle, and it starts at the legs, it goes up, and then it was kind of coming around my head, and before it could like meet, I would get up and stop it. I said, Rob, you're connecting brain, body, mind, heart, and soul. Let it happen, because then you vibrate. I was explaining it to him what was going to happen. He was having a moment, and we talk. He wasn't feeling well, and he just lived over in New Jersey, so he wasn't feeling well. I said, Rob, listen, you got to go to a doc in the box. Go someplace. Oh, I'm waiting. Well, after about a week, I'm like, and he was 6'7". I'm only 6'1". And I'm like, Rob, if you don't go to a doctor, I'm going to come to your house, drag your ass out, and I will take you to a doctor. Long story short, he went to his brother's doctor. Brother's doctor waved him off, says, take him to the hospital. He had lesions on his lungs, his spine, and his brain. And he was like 40-something years old. And we talked, for the 3 days that I got to talk to him. Are you okay? We would text. He's like, I'm really tired. They went very aggressive with his treatment because he was young enough where they wanted him to handle it. And he was all for it. And it was a Wednesday. I will never forget it. It was about seven in the evening, and we're talking, and I'm like, "How you doing, bud?" He goes, "I'm scared," and I said, "I know you are. I understand." I said, "But remember, you have your faith in God. Put it in God, and you're going to be okay." And he says, "Yeah, he's, I said, I love you, man," and I'm like, "I love you too, brother. I'm praying for you." And then I hung up the phone and went back to being, COVID life. Well, I get up about 10 something in the evening. I have a railroad kitchen. I'm standing in it right now. It's really narrow. And when you come out, if it opens up a little bit to the left, but to the right, you have to go make a right and a right to go to the restroom. I'm coming out. It's the only light on in the entire apartment, and it shines a little bit out past the entrance. And as I'm walking out and I go to make the first turn to go towards the restroom, I see Rob and he's smiling at me. And like it's peripheral.
Mhm.
And I can still see him right now. And I went and I did double take and I turned back, went to the restroom, and I knew he passed away. I just knew it. So fast forward to Friday, I'm getting dinner ready. And I get a phone call on my phone. And if you've ever gotten those, folks, I don't know if everybody in chat, you may have gotten it too. I just didn't know the number, didn't know the name. It said, "Bryan, answer this phone call." It was Rob's sister. And she told me he passed away Wednesday at about 10 something. And I didn't say I knew, but I knew. Basically, the long story, like we had his viewing, um, for a day. The next day was his birthday, or would have been his birthday. And his family, which was his mother who was left, brother and his wife and sister and her husband, they said, "Thanks for coming." And I figured, oh, they're upstate New York. I go up there all the time. There's a Bigfoot and, whatever. That's where I go. There's one of the areas. I said, I could always stop by the cemetery and visit him. And that's where this blew me away. Said, "Thank you for coming. Tomorrow we'll be cremating Rob, and then you know, and it was like, I got it. He was having a dreams and visions of his death and cremation. That's why he couldn't get out. He goes, "I felt like I was in a box. It was all dark and there was flames around me." It wasn't demon. He was foreseeing his cremation. Um, it's just weird how some people get to see certain things unaware that they're seeing their own demise or whatever, and how some people you just have these moments and they're touching, especially with the people that you do. I mean, you're an angel, but you're not good
Oh,
with real estate, Len. You're not good.
no, I'm not. No, I'm not. That definitely. And speaking of that too, Bob, um, he'd made mention too. He was talking about how this when our soul leaves, it's kind of like a pool table with balls in the triangle before you strike it, and then when you take it off and you hit the ball and all of the balls disperse and go everywhere, that parts of our soul do that, and it lands in different areas, and that we live multiple lives simultaneously, and that a lot of time, this is a whole nother show, but just briefly, that a lot of times in our dreams that we kind of go through those veils that divide because the soul all comes back together in the collective, but we kind of bulge into those just a little bit, and our dreams a lot of times, and what we do in our lifetimes ripple into to the effect the other ones as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, when you are dreaming and you're like, man, I was this fighter pilot, I was going through space and I was shooting at these people and it was so real. Well, yeah, it was because you kind of went through the veil sometimes as well. So, and also for him, seeing forward that, that definitely happens. And, a lot of interesting things, but yeah, real estate's not a good one for me, people.
No,
But,
no, no. We're going to get into that in a second,
yeah,
but I've always explained this to people that you have dreams, which are vague, and then you have experiences.
yes.
And the experience is full detail. And what happens is you need to upload and download to source. And we do that every night, people. So when you go to bed and you get that REM and you think you're dreaming, you're connected back to source. And what they do is they upload what you've been through, download some new stuff for you, things that you need to know or things that are going to take transpire. But sometimes they can't just download it to you. You have to experience certain things. So they will put you as the fighter pilot, or they'll put you saving Jesus, or something weird. And then when you wake up, you're like, oh my God, that was so vivid, and you're tired. You're tired because even though your physical body wasn't up, you were up. You were all night long,
So,
and you were getting it. Yeah.
Bryan, is there can you be in one of the, like the Twilight Zone status where reincarnation and prophecy, Nostradamus kind of stuff, where they actually are interconnected?
That's a great question. I mean, I'll ask Lynn for her take.
What exactly? Everything is interconnected. Everything.
Okay.
Because we're all energy, and even because I was just thinking about one patient that I had that I know for a fact was alien, because she was a hybrid. Because I would see the aliens working on her at nighttime, which I thought when I would walk in a room, which is a whole nother story too. I'll be happy to share with that. But also at the time that my mother passed away, when I was able to look into the other side, I noticed that there were these beautiful beings that walked with the angels but didn't have wings, and they appeared to be from somewhere else. And really, if you think about it, with as many stars as there are that are sunshines to other solar systems, it would be ignorant on our part to think that we were the only ones. And when those beings finish their tour of duty in their lifetime, they have to have somewhere to go to. And I've learned a lot about the other side, and the fact that yes, people, we are connected with, so the alien, and that's where the alien thing and the angel thing comes together. They're both correct. So
right.
Yeah.
You get some couple scenes in the New Testament where there a character suddenly appears and then they're gone.
Yeah. I mean, that's a cross. Well, that could be an angel, that could be an extraterrestrial. I mean, it depends on
it's documented from 2,000 years ago.
No, I know that, but they're actually seeing or interacting with something. Again, we're made, like I've said this before, and Lynn, just thank you for reiterating it. We are made of energy and water and light, and I mean, the human, but we only use a certain percentage of our capabilities. If we use 15%, 20, even 50 or 100, you can literally physically go anywhere you want and through anything you want, because you're vibrating a different frequency. It gets crazy what we can do. A lot of times what happens is when people have NDE, near death experience, and they do die and they come back. There's a lot of times people agree with someone, it's not your time, you need to go back, because everybody has a timeline. The only individuals that know it are the people, I guess, whoever the timekeepers are, God and whoever. But when people come back, they often come back with a lot of these abilities unlocked. So you get an Edgar Casey that has an issue where he gets ill, and then he goes to these trances and he's not well. But then when he comes back, he can tell you what's going on because it unlocked a certain feature. Even Nostradamus had an issue. The plague, he may have had it. That happens quite often. Then some people they skip, like, I forgot what cartoon it was, but it was a movie too with Mary Stuart Masterson, who I was in love with back in the 80s. And her dad dies, but he's like, no, I got to get back to my family. And he skips the line or whatever. He gets back, but he didn't get the shot to kind of get rid of get rid of the knowledge of everything. It stays in your DNA and it stays in your system, but you get rid of the knowledge. So he comes back and he's looking for his family and realizes he's a younger guy now, not the father. So some people just scoot out. Like my youngest, who I will swear is an earth angel, she's been like this since go, like in utero and everything. She will tell you things that will blow your mind. She knows a lot of stuff about you, and she just starts, she doesn't know what she's doing. So I have to go, no, not now. And she just gets it. Lynn gets it because Lynn has those abilities too. I know Lynn has the abilities. A lot of the people you see on these shows, matter of fact, Wayne is here. Michelle's probably resting after this point. Wayne has gifts and abilities as well, but they're not at this point, not as strong or this specific that Michelle doesn't have. But Michelle is really, really psychic. And we've played this game before, which is crazy. So it's just, sometimes you can have this, sometimes you can appear. I've heard this before. Like, were you just up in Toronto? And I'm like, no. He goes, dude, I just saw you in Toronto. And I'm like, I wasn't there, but maybe I was. I couldn't really tell you. I know I wasn't. So it happens. And what's great is the documentation in the Bible is, if you really want to start researching, a lot of that stuff it's not just the Sumerian text, okay? There's a lot more to it. They're finding evidence of these things. But in regards to what Lynn does, he's not good with real estate. We can get into a little bit of that if you want, because I want to show your book, your website first for a second. I apologize. It should be a banner scrolling through showing your web address, lynnmonét.com. This is part of our Omnipresent. That's your series. That's your base, right? So everything you do is omnipresent. This is the latest, I believe, right? The latest one.
No, that is the first one. This is actually an event that occurred on the master bathroom toilet. My son was sitting on the toilet and saw this coming through. This is a story about a house that was so haunted that I never actually moved into it.
Yes.
I don't want to have orbs flying around the room because I'm trying to get away from the more dark things. This is the second book that comes after that. It's Omnipresent, What Happened Next, because everybody wanted to know what happened next. But if you look into the window, you can see a demon's face. Do you see it?
Yep, and I'm pressing on the book, so hopefully we get a bigger on the website, so we can throw that up there.
This book talks about the fact that I was able to get in touch with the people that sold the house to me, found out all of what was happening with them, found out that whole area of East Flat Rock is haunted. It goes into mental illness and addiction, because I see attachments on people with that as well, and a rotation that I did through the psychiatric ward when I have been a nurse for 40 years. I am retired. I just turned 62 last month, and
You're 29.
What's that?
You don't look 62.
Oh well, thank you. But
in person, she looks a lot better too. So
you're so sweet. Thank you so much. But people wanted to know what happened, so I wrote this one. In each of my books, I have a self-help section in the back explaining some things you do. Now, there's a third book in this series coming out. It's called Omnipresent, Becca Dawn Drive, which is another event that occurred where I had to move. I had gone through a divorce. I had to go move. I've been married twice. I'm not married again.
Learn your lesson, huh?
But anyway, not doing that again. But anyway, so I was kind of having to move into a place in a hurry, and I didn't really have the opportunity to investigate it, going in with my sensors on and things like that. Yeah, mash that button. So this townhouse was a string of townhouses of 10 units that the whole complex was haunted. But it just so happened that number 4, the one that I moved into, had the portal in it. So there
Yeah.
was a naked ghost that was going from townhouse to townhouse, pulling down women's underwear, crawling in bed with them during the night, sometimes having sex, and he was groping men as well. So he was just an all-around pervert. I have a picture of him. I think I've sent it to you before a long time ago, of Weenie Man, the one standing in front of the front door with his hand over his Johnson. I mean, you think
I can't. I could look for it, but I let me see if I can find it while you're talking about Weenie Man.
Yeah, don't worry about it. The funny thing is that with as much as he was swinging in all the rooms, trying to be a sexy babe, then all of a sudden he's going to get his picture taken and he gets bashful, so he covers it up. Either that or he was having a chilled moment and didn't want to be embarrassed. So anyway, that book is coming out within the next couple of days. That'll be the third book in the Omnipresent series. There's going to be a series of 5. The next one I'm currently writing is Omnipresent. Omnipresent Gnome Place Like Home, which is a story about Bob. There'll be a book coming out after that is Omnipresent, but it's going to come off of the Bob books. There are going to be 3 books that come off the Bob books. The first one kind of talks about how we met, which I'll definitely talk about that. But then the second one talks about some of the things that he's told me about. He even told me what Bigfoot was. So he pulls all the cryptids and the Bigfoot and all of that stuff all together, and the Fae and everything, all of that together. So, and then I don't know what the 5th book is going to be, but I also have Colors of Heaven, which is not part of that series. It's this one, with the rainbow in the front. My daughter made that cover.
This is a very interesting. There's a lot to do with color in this world. Yep. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Continue.
And then this is The Gap. What else your adolescent and teens know? It's not paranormal or anything. I was looking for a book for my daughter who's kind of at that age, right. And the counselors, there was like this gap between cutting off at like age 12 and age like 14 or 15, which they still listen to you at that age. So if you're going to do your talking, you got to get it downloaded then. But it talks about things like what to do if a condom breaks. What to do. Not that I'm encouraging people's children to have sex, but if they are having sex, they need to know what to do if a condom breaks, because there are things that you can do over the counter in the grocery store to stop a woman's ovulation so that the pregnancy doesn't happen. And it won't hurt a pregnancy if they're already pregnant. And it talks about how to clean out a refrigerator. It goes into all of the stuff that the birds and bees don't talk about. The first chapter is called Your Privates, and it talks about, it's not about the sexual act. It's about all of the other stuff. I've got pictures of releases of trunks and how to get out of a trunk if ever you get abducted and put in one, and how to fold the back seat so you can get into the trunk and vice versa. So it's got a lot of stuff that way. But the book that the book that's coming out in a couple of days is that one that's called Becca Dawn Drive. And I lived there for a year. There were dead cat carcasses underneath that building. I found out. I kept smelling this odor of rancid smell, and come to find out one of the people that lived there, their indoor cat got out. And when they were in the process of looking for it, they opened up the doors to underneath and crawled underneath the building. And they said it was just full of dead cat carcasses under there. So there were a lot of feral cats.
What was the reason for that?
I have no idea. I know that there was a feral cat that was having kittens, but I have no idea what the reason for that was. But it was a health hazard, and I did report them. So, that was really gross to be smelling that. But there was a whole thing with that where, because I walked through quickly and everything looked nice, when I actually went to move in, I found that it wasn't cleaned, and I kept trying to get them to clean it. And finally, 3 days later, the maid calls me back and says, "I'm sorry, I can't come and clean because your place is haunted." I'm kind of speeding forward, and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me. I've already been through this once. How in the hell could I possibly have to go through this a third time?" But the good thing about it is that I had to learn how to protect myself in a building where, like with people live in apartments, when you go in to clear a house, the spirits just go next door while you're clearing, and then a couple days later they come back in. They don't come back in right away because they want to make you think they're gone, but they can't resist. After about 3 days, they come in and they start menacing again. So I had to find a way to spiritually force field my apartment, because I had a townhouse on each side. And of course, this goes for people that live above or below people, to clear it, and then to be able to anchor it with some spiritual things that would connect to keep them from coming back in, and it worked. So I was able to mention that in the book to help people in the self-help section. But the book that I'm writing currently, another piece of real estate, my sister, out of 6 of us, I'm the only one left. I do have a half sister, which I consider a full sister, that my father had in his first marriage. That's in her 70s, so she's older. It's not like I'm young, so I have to. The 70th seems so far away, but it's really not that far away anymore. So anyway, in my immediate family of my parents and the 4 children, I'm the only one left. So my youngest sister was murdered by a Baptist minister's son. That was interesting, who got off scot-free. Then my mother passed away. Then my father passed away 3 months later. My brother passed away, all of them from cancer. And then my sister Lisa had a battle with cancer, but the cancer was gone. So she died from negligence of the hospital with sepsis and fluid overload. They put 70 pounds of fluid on her in 1 week, in 6 days, actually. And it overwhelmed her heart and she couldn't breathe and she died. So anyway, but of course they managed to put it down as breast and ovarian cancer, and she had no ovaries and she had no breasts. So that's not possible. Yep. So that because they knew how much trouble they'd get into with sepsis and fluid overload. And of course, none of the attorneys in Louisiana want to touch it. But anyway, I inherited her house. So ahead of time, when my sister was alive, she was complaining about, she could see spirits too, but she felt this darker thing that was more menacing. And she thought that, in Louisiana, voodoo is a religion. So the same as it is in Haiti, these Cajuns, they do voodoo, and it's very real, what they do.
Big time voodoo.
Yep. And so anyway, she kept trying to clear the house and to take care of the house, and the house actually made her quite sick. The house, when she went looking for the house, and I'm getting phlegmy a little bit sometimes because when I start talking about some of this stuff and they don't want me to talk about it.
Not a problem.
Seems to happen. So
yeah, well, sometimes they don't want you to mention things.
Yeah, well, just because the darker things, but as we get into Bob's okay with that. But anyway, so she, when she moved into the house, she had a huge bird aviary, like 250 exotic birds. She was very well known in the community. She was on TV programs and the Jerry Lewis telethon back in the day when Jerry Lewis was on. She would bring birds in for the children to pet and things like that. So she was a big deal. So she ended up moving to this property that literally stripped her of her business, her health. Then she got the cancer. It exacerbated anything within her system. And she lived there for a 10-year period, had cancer twice. Her business dried up so bad because they can do that energetically when they start converging all of that negative energy on you. They can definitely make things pretty nasty in your life.
Yes, they can.
And it just so happened that during the time that she was there, she brought this rock in from outside that I found after she passed away, which is a key piece. But when my sister first found this house, somebody else purchased the house underneath her and she didn't get it the first time. So she continued to look because it's this beautiful, almost 2,000 square foot house sitting in the middle of a large fenced in 2-acre lot. It's beautiful out there, very peaceful and quiet. And so when she saw it come back on the market a year later, the guy foreclosed on it that bought it, found out that the previous 5 owners foreclosed on it, and she couldn't understand why. She thought maybe it was because it was in a flood zone or something, which it is, but it hadn't flooded in like 15 years. So she was happy to get it, but because the person had started renovating the house, there were no doors inside of it. A lot of the drywall was missing. She couldn't get a traditional loan. So a friend of hers stepped forward and the house was $50,000 and paid the $50,000 for my sister. My sister paid her back. But the thing was, is the more the negative energy tried to squeeze my sister, which most people would have had to abandon the house and foreclose on the house and leave because they wouldn't have been able to make the mortgage payment. But because there was no mortgage payment, that same tactic didn't work on my sister because what it did is it stuck her there more. She had no money to go anywhere else So
Right.
she was stuck.
She was
you know?
stuck.
Yeah. So anyway, after she passed away, I was upstairs. She didn't have any end of life directives. And of course, I'm trying to find, a will or something. And I'm going through her filing cabinet. And on top of there, she has her crystal collection. And in the middle of her crystals was this heart-shaped rock about as big as my opened hand. It was a big rock. Very, very, I mean, it was nondescript, kind of ugly, color, kind of a little brown, some gray in there, little root things in it. And I thought to myself, I'm throwing things away while I'm going through. I'm like, well, we don't need this. We don't need this. We don't need this. So I'm trying to clear things away while I'm looking for things that I need. And I went to pick up that rock to throw it away. And the energy burnt my hand. I mean, it went all the way up my arm. I could feel it in my teeth. And I immediately dropped it. And I'm like, oh no. There's something funky with that rock. And I am not going to touch it again. There's no way I'm going to touch it.
Leave it right there, folks.
That's right. So this is a key piece, a little bit of spoil alert. So anyway, I had contacted my sister Mary to fly her in to help me because I was so overwhelmed. My sister was a pack rat, and this was so unexpected. And so I'm just overwhelmed. And plus, I'm a single mother, and I have a child in school, that I'm going to have to go home to take care of that I did not bring with me. So anyway, my sister's there, and all of a sudden she's sleeping upstairs in my sister's room. And I overhear her for like an hour and a half humming hymns and mumbling prayers and doing all of this stuff. And I thought, wow, she must be having insomnia, but that's really a strange ritual to help you go to sleep.
Seriously.
So, I was up, doing things. So the next morning I said to her, did you sleep okay? And she said, no. She said, I was sleeping. She said, and I woke up and I saw this wreath of balloon-like faces hovering over my bed. And I started praying and singing hymns to make it leave, and it didn't leave. And I thought, okay, and I had also, prior to her coming, saw my father and my sister, what I thought were them, but I think it was a shift change or some kind of a holographic. I mean, it looked holographic almost, going through, passing me, because there was something off about it. And I kept finding these dirt trails that were about 3 inches and long, and they were peaked in the middle, going lengthwise. All of them. They were these. I kept finding them in the kitchen on the floor of this dirt. And I'm wondering, is it my shoes? Are there termites? I'm looking around to see where something's chewing something that would leave those dirt marks. So my sister left, and I ended up leaving at that point. And then I ended up having to come back. And this time my son comes with me. And we decided to do a blessing on the house because we knew that there, just to clear away any sickness, any negativity, any of the trauma that she had gone through financially and stuff like that. So we use a fire component. We went through the house with the fire component. Because it sucks in oxygen, anything that's in that spirit realm kind of gets sucked in with it too. So even whether it's given the option to leave, or else it gets stuck in the pan and some sticky stuff, and then it's taken away. So we did that. We went all through the house, and all of a sudden, my son is standing in the doorway of my sister's bedroom, and I'm standing in the second bathroom in the hallway, and we're talking. And I see this little thing about 3 feet tall come walking through past me. And I remember looking at it, and I thought to myself, that thing looks just like one of the bankers on Harry Potter. I don't see anything, but I'm looking at the little blocky head, no hair, ears up high, kind of going back and pointed, the kind of nose that came over. He had little clothes on, and he's just walking past. So then he walks past me, and then he walks past my son into the master bedroom. And my son says to me, "Did you just see Hogwarts go by?" And I said, yes. Lo and behold, he comes back out, passes my son, goes back into the third bedroom where the rock was. Okay. Then he comes out a third time. I mean, he goes one way, then he comes back a third time. But this time he left an ectoplasmic portal. And in that portal were the faces in a wreath shape hovering in that portal. I automatically assumed and misunderstood. I thought that he was holding those souls prisoner for his own entertainment. And it turned out that he wasn't. He was actually collecting them to protect them because the house is on ley lines. And the ley lines were clogged with very, very dark things because of some of the positive things that it also sat on. So he didn't want, because, you know, when you go into a house where there are, you know, spirits in it, there's always sometimes something darker or something more controlling that kind of controls over them. And he was trying to protect them from that. And he was happy to have them released and no longer be responsible. But at the time, I didn't know that. I assumed. So I'm like, and plus, because the Fae have been here since time began, we were created with the earth, where our bodies come from the earth and our souls come in from source. And he references source. He's even told me what Jesus looks like, because he was here at the time that he was hung on the cross. He talks about the fairy crosses and how they were made. There's so many things that I've learned. But anyway, so they're not affected by religion. So you can't, any kind of blessing or clearing that you're going to do on the house, it's like, give it your best shot. So all of a sudden I hear this grumbling, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And that was my name for about a month. Am I allowed to say that on here?
You're allowed to say whatever that fuck you want.
It's a bit late now.
And then I hear, bitch. And I'm like, you know, what is that? You know, I'm thinking that my son's listening to some, you know, rap music or something with cuss words. So anyway, we see this and I'm like, okay, what is that? So I go downstairs and I call, I contact Cisco, and I said, Cisco, my son and I have done a clearing on this house, and there's still this being in this house that's about 3 feet tall, and he's not friendly. I said, what do we do? And she said, you need to call Bryan Bowden. I said, okay, you know, I'm Bryan O'Brien. I've been on the podcast with him before, Three Beards, and you know, and there was something else that I think that we had done that we had met
it was
each other.
just like Cisco's show and then the Three Beards. That's why, like, when I saw you in the Beards, I'm like, I know this name, I know this person, but I didn't put the two together because they're so, in many ways, so far removed from each other that, you know, sometimes you just, and I don't forget faces, you know, or names. But yeah, I got that phone call. I got the text message. That was
well, you did, and so and you were busy at the moment or something. I didn't hear back from you right away, and of course, every 5 minutes seemed like an hour because now I don't even want to sleep in this place, you know. So then I reached out to Jim Rupert, who was available immediately, and I spoke to him, and then Bryan reached out to me, and we started talking on the phone, and Bryan added pieces too, but he was also reiterating some of what I had seen. He was reiterating the layout of the house. He told me, you know, he was telling me, he says, there's an entity that is underneath your house that and the thing was, is you could stand out on that front deck and you could hear him mulling around under the house. Because he mumbles to himself and you could hear him, you know, doing that. So anyway, when you had said that, I'm like, yeah, I've heard that. And you're like, and he's coming up through an area behind the kitchen. There's like a stairwell or something that he's coming up into that third bedroom. And that was exactly correct. There was a family room behind the kitchen. The stairwell paralleled the living room and the kitchen, kind of divided the two. So there was a storage area underneath the stairs that he would come in through. But oddly, he would go up into it, and there was an area and a closet in that third bedroom that also oddly connected with that storage space. So he would come up in through there into that third bedroom, and Bryan told me, he says he's coming in there because there's something of his that he's checking on or coming in to see or to, you know, type thing. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like,
he wanted.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, Lynn didn't have her supplies that she would use to fight these things because you kind of can't get them on a plane. They kind of frown on you carrying certain things on a plane. But, and I think you I don't know if it was him or something else, but you were having a stomach issue where you felt like you were being attacked.
I had an attachment on me. I was waking up with my hair tied in knots.
And then in the kitchen is where they kept all whatever they had there, the water or whatever it is. And I think I asked you to make moon water at one
You
point.
did.
It
You
was around a
did.
full moon. That really is pretty powerful, even for elementals. They respect it. And I said to Lynn as she was there, I said, he's not going to go in the kitchen. So I would sleep in the kitchen floor, which I think you thought I was crazy. Everything I said, but he's hanging out on the stairs and I could see him in the spindles,
And he
his
was.
face like a little kid,
I
his
could see
legs
him.
hanging over and just
Mhm.
going, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Yes.
He was pissed. He didn't want them there at all. And I said, that's when I came up with this. Okay, go to the top of the stairs, the room to the right. There's going to be a table in it. I said, make him a deal, offer him milk and cookies, which when you're dealing with some stuff like this, to say give him milk and cookies is not really one of the protocols. But I had an idea what I was dealing with, and I will let you continue to
Yeah.
go on.
Well, he had made mention that he was coming into the house for something, and I'm like, well, I can't say what I said, but I'm like, I said, fuck me, I know exactly what it is. It's got to be that rock. And I said that to you. I said, there's a rock in the bedroom that I touched that has so much energy to it that I couldn't stand to hold it. And you said, that's what he's coming in for. And the thing was, is in addition to that, lo and behold, dude, I pulled my recliner into that kitchen. That's where I slept. But he still kept leaving these dirt trails. He didn't like coming through there. And you know why? Because my sister had taken rocks and put them all over the floor and cemented them to the floor. I don't know why she did that, because it's dreadful to stand on when you're cooking. And it really should be something out by a swimming pool. But those were his family members. And he was pissed off about that too. So anyway, you had also mentioned something too about the shed in the back of the house. And, the next day that we needed to return the rock. And
I mentioned, I talked about the wooded area behind. There's like a stream and whatever behind there. I said, put it over there, and and I knew it was other people's property, but to get it off the property, and you're like, there was other people there. I said, well, you have that shed, put it in the shed, make him a deal. You got to start talking to him, make him a deal. And he knew I was there. He didn't say anything to me, but he knew I was there. And I think he understood that I wasn't there to hurt him. I'm definitely not going to let him hurt you guys. Let's make a deal. It was like, I felt like Bob Barker. Let's make a deal.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure I'm not cooking. Yeah. And so we did what the next morning we took the rock outside with the table that we had set up. The milk. We didn't have, I did a dumb thing. We didn't have milk and cookies, so we had strawberries, and that's one thing you don't give them. Of course, I set up milk and strawberries. I wanted to give them something. I didn't know that you don't give them strawberries. So the next morning, my son took the rock to put it out in the shed like we were told to do, like Bryan, on the table, on the little table that we had, and we hung a bell over it as an offering, and he loved that bell because he would chime it make it ring every once in a while, to offer a peace offering. And as my son was taking the rock out the front door, Bob was walking behind him, flinging vines, spiritual vines around his legs. And my son's like, man, my legs are itching. I feel like there are ants all over me. And I said, that's because that little thing is flinging vines on you, trying to stop him, because he didn't know what he was doing with the rock. He didn't realize that we were returning the rock. Even though we told him that we were, he didn't believe us, because he had been so betrayed by humans. I mean, the stories that he's told me would make you cry. So anyway,
I just want to reiterate that when I talked to Lynn, I said, okay, let me go take a look. And I told her what I do and how I do it. And I needed a few minutes because it was like out of the blue. Now I could do it almost instantaneously. I could just get there. But I took a few minutes. I remember saying before she even mentioned it to me, I said, he kind of reminds me of the bankers in Hogwarts. He's not a pretty looking character, if you want. And she was, at the point where like she needs the help, she's getting the help, and I think at one point you're like, how the hell does he know this?
Yeah.
Because I was, and I can't explain how I know it. I just do what I do, at the time. So
Yeah.
Lynn, is there something about this rock that?
we're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll it's there is something about the rock.
Yes, very big something, a very big something about the rock. So anyway, Austin took the rock out, and of course the spirits are now there, and I'm like, I opened up the front door and I'm just like, it's time to go home. Daddy's gone. So all of these spirits are like flying out the door. A few of them still lingered. And again, I'm thinking, oh shit, when this little guy comes back, he's going to be pissed off that I took away his entertainment, which he was not. He was actually relieved and wanted the rest of them to be crossed over. But this was later after we had built up a rapport. So I went to the store and I got beignets because Bryan had also mentioned baked things. They liked that. I got liquor and tobacco and all of the things that I was supposed to get. And I sat them on the counter and I told him, I said, look, we're here temporarily. My sister has passed away. He actually felt bad about that a little bit. You could see that even though he didn't like her, he kind of was used to her being there. So there, type thing. And plus she had all those birds and he kind of helped watch over the birds as well. So I had little, crystals and things too that my sisters, I'm like, you stay outside in your area. We will bring you an offering every day that you comply with us. We will be leaving after 5 nights because we are on linear time. They are not on any time thing. So the only way to describe it, to understand it, is daytime and nighttime. So I said, we will be here for 5 darknesses, and on the 5th darkness, we will leave that morning. So he complied. And by the way, he loves beignets and Oreos. He loves those. So anyway, we were consistent with what we did. And the day that we were supposed to leave, the upstairs bathroom sprung a leak and I couldn't leave. So and it was on a holiday. So I had to get a plumber to come, which came later that evening. So Austin and I decided to go out to go get some good Cajun food. And we didn't mention that we were staying over. So when we told him that when we left for good at that point of that trip, that he could come back into the house. So when we entered the front door after going to lunch, we could hear this grumbling. It sounded like the Tasmanian devil coming up from the back of the house, bitch, and fuck you. I was, all of his little antics. And I said, oh my God, we forgot to tell him that we had to stay one more day. So we didn't hold our end of the agreement. So we had to explain again, we had to stay one more day. There was a problem, but we are leaving in the morning. So that night, my son's loading my sister's truck with some things that I'm bringing back to South Carolina. And all of a sudden I hear all of these obscenities being yelled out, And so I'm thinking that my son has injured himself because some of the stuff he was lifting was pretty heavy. And I go to the door to go to see if he's all right. And my son's at the door right in my face as I open it. And I said, what happened? He's like, what? And I said, why were you yelling obscenities? Did you hurt yourself? He said, that wasn't me. I said, well, did you hear it? And he said, no. So the next morning, my son's starting his car. He was concerned that his battery was kind of low, wanted to charge it up. He's putting in my phone charger in the truck so that I'll be able to navigate because I couldn't find where it was. And so I step out onto the front porch and all of a sudden I hear, fuck you, bitch. So I go over to my son and I said, what's the matter? What, are you okay? And he said, what? And I said, I keep hearing these obscenities. Is that you? And he said, no. And all of a sudden we both heard, fuck you, death, type, just carrying on. So when we looked in that shed, in the opening of that shed, there stood Bob. Bob was concerned. My feeling was that he was concerned that we were leaving and that we didn't give him the rest of the things that we promised him on the counter. And he wanted to make sure that we did. So kind of the cute thing is when we finally went in there, we took all of the things, the liquor, the tobacco, sat it out on his table, and we said, listen, we're leaving. You can go back in the house. We will be coming back. I have to finish some things. I feel this feeling on the side of my leg, like here's the outside of my leg. And if I had a seam like a pair of pants, I feel this little hand going like this up against my leg. And he does that every time when he's around, because even if I have shorts on, he does it. It's like just above my knee. So it's not fresh, but I feel this feeling of something holding like the seam of my pants is what he does. And I'm like, oh, he's right here. Because he kind of hid from us at first when we came
Yep.
in, especially after that show that Cisco did with you on there. And we were all putting
Oh.
the fear of the creator into him. So we left. Anyway, coming forward, we built a rapport with Bob, and he's been such an amazing asset. I am getting to the rock. Also, I wanted to make mention that during that 5 days that we had stayed there, my son at one point had gone out to change the oil on his car. And he said while he was underneath the car, because he didn't have like a major jack thing to, I don't know what you do to change oil, but you have to do something under the car or whatever it was he was doing. He said that as he's laying there, he sees this spirit of a bear, feet walking past, and then these little tiny feet walking behind the bear. When he came out from underneath the car, my kids are all very gifted. He said that the yard was lit up like a quilt, but instead of square pieces, they were triangular pieces with a gold, silver, and a blue cord that connected them all. And come to find out, those were portals that Bob was creating in the yard. And when he came out, there were all of these spirit animals wandering in the yard. And he thought that that was so cool, but still we were kind of leery of the little thing. But he started to realize, we were still kind of keeping our distance. But he made mention of that and how amazing that was. And he came, and he got me and he said, can you, then the light had kind of shifted and I saw something sparkling, but I didn't see what he saw. I saw kind of the waffling to the air in some places. So anyway, turns out that the rock is, Bob is called a rock-un, not rock-in, a rock-un. He is a fae that works with everything below the soil. And it just so happens that his mother worked with everything above the soil. And usually his father's a rockin' and his mother's up above the soil. Usually the two don't mix. So he's actually biracial, which makes him a little bit awkward in his realm because that's not something common. They usually don't mix that way. So even though he appears more like the father, he's got little root things that look like veins and little sprigs of hair that stick out on his head in a few places. So anyway, he was talking to us about the rock, and it turns out that the rock was one of the original pieces of the earth when it was created, is what he said. And that there were 5 of those pieces on the earth, which now he's brought to that property, by the way. I don't know where they all are. I do know where.
Brought all of, okay.
He did. But I know where one of them is for sure. And I haven't looked for the other ones. I'm not interested. It's his things, type thing. And he was talking too about how the rock was a companion for him, that the rock, Bob loves stories. So he talked about how the rock would tell him stories of times long ago. It would play his music. And he said that there were some other very special qualities to that rock that he could not convey to the humans at this time. Right. So, so it was, precious to him. It was his precious. And I know that he helped exacerbate the demise of my sister. And people are like, how could you not be angry? But, realizing how precious that rock to him, it was like his child. And to me, if somebody kidnapped my child and put it away in a room, I'd be shooting him zingers and wanting him dead too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The way I explained it to Lynn is he's older than dirt for the most part. I mean, he's old, like beginning of everything old. And
yes.
And I understand what they say, you have to understand quartz is a great example. Quartz is Bigfoot and quartz go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. It's an energy. It's a storage device. It's no different than a hard drive. We have watches that run on quartz. So what you think is a simple, oh, look, it looks like the shape of a heart. Well, that may be holding some, it could be a pensive for them, and they can get images of their parents or the
Yes.
ones that they do love and have a affinity for. And you take that, like if that was your, you loved your parents or you love your father, and someone took their watch from you, you'd go nuts. So
Yeah.
don't,
And-
go
Lynn, you
crazy.
said there was a plant on it or
No,
a fossil.
because he was a rockin', his skin is actually the color. I should have sent you a picture of the rock because I actually have it. It is heart shaped, but when it lays down, it looks like a sleeping rabbit face
Right.
if you cut the ears off. And there's a whole story about the rabbit too. But anyway, because his mother is of things above the ground, like the grass and the trees and things like
Mhm.
that, and the father is of things below the ground, his skin looks similar to that rock. It almost looks scaly, but it's because there are roots going through it.
Oh,
And
that was okay.
yeah, and so in a few places, like right in the front, he's got a few little sprigs of what would have been kind of fuzz or hair or something, but they're like little roots that stick out a little bit. And you don't
Yeah.
really notice them unless you get close.
Yeah, it looks like little. Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe, but
Yeah.
like Charlie Brown's little,
Yeah,
kind of like that.
exactly. Yeah,
It looks like
exactly.
hairs that are misplaced, but it's not hair. It's kind of hard to describe, and
It
I was
is.
taken back by when I saw it, I was like, I was I was a little bit like, okay, because telling somebody on the phone you've seen but you never really talked to, and like well, you got a kind of Harry Potter gnome, whatever. There's no place like gnome
Mhm.
place like home, but yeah, it's kind of. I really wish.
Well, and you've even met him in person.
Yes, I have met him in person, but after the fact. But I've met him. I mean, I was from a distance, but Cisco had the graphic that was as close as you can get to what he kind of initially looked like.
Yeah, with
Um,
a larger nose. The nose
yeah,
kind of can't. Yeah, yeah. No,
um,
it was pretty close, and the blocky head and the ears.
yeah.
The ears were higher than that, but yeah, about as close as you can get. That is for
But
sure.
when I met him in person, um, Lynn was in Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, which is coming up this July. I hope she's going to be there again. I have a drill. Would help you out
Good.
with your display. But Bob was sitting there like it's kind of hard to describe. His feet were just hanging off like a little kid, and they're doing the wiper thing like a
Mhm.
little kid does. And I'm like, okay, I got him. I know he's here. And he was smiling. He was happy. He was like, this is great. All
Yeah,
these people believe in this stuff. It blew him away that I think, that there are people that do believe in it.
there is,
But
and it's funny. I had several people that were psychic people that came up to me and they said, "You have a little boy following you around," and I'm like, yeah, because
yeah,
he exudes this male energy, and because he is a male. And so when you came around the corner, when I was breaking down my thing, he was sitting in that chair exactly like you said.
yep.
Because even when he rides in the car sometimes with me, his little feet go back and forth like windshield wipers, and he's got the shit-eating grin on his face, because he's like, because he's taking in things. There was one night where the Fae were invited into the house, which is where some of those pictures came from.
Just I have 1, 2, and 3, or like how you gave it to me.
Okay.
I can show them whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I will. There was one night I said to Bob, because we've been back and forth, Bob has become such a precious, precious asset to the family. I would guard his rock with my life, and he knows it. Nobody will ever take that away from him again. But the thing is and tell just really quickly, everything. I was asked to write 3 books in order to bridge the gap between the Fae and the humans, since this frequency is changing and more people are going to start seeing these things. And also their telepathy is going to become a 6th sense coming in months. Maybe by the end of the year, people are going to start having all of that open up more.
Oh yeah.
So they asked, and I even argued with them. I said, listen, are you sure that you want me to do this? Because humans are going to want to make you a pet. and you're gonna be the genie in the bottle, and they're gonna have these expectations. And I was told, yes, this is the time frame to do it. And I even said to him, I said, well, look, you know, you want me to do it? How am I going to pay my expenses? And lo and behold, let me tell you what, I've retired at 62. They have done everything that they have said that they were going to do, plus some. So, and I mean, there's stories behind that as well. But anyway, before that, what was I saying about Bob?
You're talking about the Fae that were appearing.
Oh, yes. I had asked him, I said to him, I said, I want to see you more solid. I want to see you in person. And he was standing at the bottom of the stairs, and because of the energy and the colors, it was rippling over his face like a rainbow back and forth. And I'm like, I can see you energetically, but I can't see you solid. And my son and I were sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden, I had talked to a friend of mine previously, and she said, for some reason, because I was busy and not listening, Bob kind of channeled through her in that moment, a lady named Lisa, and she said, he's going to bring the Fae with him to your house tonight to visit. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Well, I didn't even think about that again. So my son and I are sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden it's in the nighttime, and my son looks over and he says, there are two beings standing over there by the door. And I said, oh yeah, Bob was going to bring the Fae in tonight. I was told that. And all of a sudden the room just fills with all of these beautiful beings. One of the pictures is a Druid Queen mother. She comes in with the Night Fae, of which we also have pictures of. Which
is that the one with the two, Lynn?
The Druid mother is the one that looks like a deer, an elegant deer when she lays down. When she stands up, most of the time, she looks like a walking log with antlers. She's the taller one. Most of them are under 3 feet tall.
That's her right there.
Let's see.
And I know it's small, folks, but if
it's not where is it?
It should be right on the right-hand side.
I don't see anything.
It should. Mark, do you see it? The image or no?
Yeah.
Hold on.
I do. Do you need to expand it more?
I'm going to add it to the stage one more time. Depending on your device, what I could do is let me open it up. Let me open them up in a separate screen, and
so
then
I can see it. I don't.
Yeah. And while you're doing that, all of a sudden I'm looking at the couch, which is a sectional, and I see these fingers go across the back of it like a piano that were Bob's hands, and they were solid. And his fingers are like fat little sausages. I expected them to be gnarly, but they're chubby, fat little sausages. There are 3 fingers and then a thumb. And his skin color is the same as the color of that rock. And the thing about it is his hands are quite clean, actually. There it is. There she is.
There it is. I did it bigger. And
she's laying down there. So she looks like a deer. This is a queen. And when she stands up upright, she literally looks like a walking log with the limbs and stuff that are more stick-like.
And let me tell you, I'm sure this will be accompanied in the book.
Yes.
So you'll be able to see it, and you really got to see it up close, like better. I mean, I got it, I received it, and I'm looking, and I've seen this before, and I'm still amazed at these images.
Now, with her comes in the blue ones, and this I want to explain about this picture.
Sure.
I took these pictures, but there's the picture of the 2 blue things. They are present on the property. They're called the Night Fae. Some people call them blue flares. But when I was looking them up, trying to determine what they were, I found a picture online that looked just like the ones that I had, only the ones that I had, there were 2 of them, but they were more facing each other than standing one kind of ahead of one another. They were they were closer together and they were facing each other. And I accidentally erased that one, thinking that I was erasing the one that I had found to compare it to. So
that happens all the time.
So the picture of the 2 blue things is not my picture. It is a picture that I got off of line. However, I have those things on the property where I live, and the Druid Queen is the queen over those blue things. They're called Night Fae. They're very, very interesting. They live on bioluminescent beaches. When they come, they build beehive type things in your backyard that they sleep in.
That is
They're
that
over
is
2 feet tall, and
these are the bioluminescent.
they live on bioluminescent beaches in hives. But when they come to visit, they actually stayed through the solstice. So they stayed for like 4 days, and they built a tunnel, like one of those beehive things in the backyard, that they kind of would stay in, because they are out in the evening time and the nighttime. And the reason why is, it's funny, because they say that the trees are quite the talkers during the daytime, and they don't like being out in all of the chatter and the noise of the talkative trees. So during the nighttime, their job is to help animals find their route, find food, and something that's sick, they either help it cross over, they help try to heal it. They do that sort of thing. They're very energetic and beautiful. They're originally on a bioluminescent beach. And keep in mind too, that these portals that Bob has built all over the yard is how they're able to come through, because Bob actually has a portal between 5 trees in the backyard that he goes even to Europe and England and all over there, because that's originally really where he's from. But he's covering the whole property for acres, where my sister, well, it's my house now, but my house is. Also, there's the other fairy as well that
I'm going to open that up right now too.
And I want to make mention to people that fairies do not have wings. That is something that was added on to fairies in the Elizabethan period, where they all wanted to make them look like Tinkerbell with wings, because they couldn't understand how they fly. The little fairies, they self-propulse. A lot of times they come in with the monarch butterflies and the dragonflies. And keep in mind too, people, there he is, that the what do they call them? The water nymphs, the water.
I know.
They turn into dragonflies. Right. They turn into dragonflies, so they live partially under the water. And also our family spirits of our loved ones carry in on the dragonflies too. So all over my sister's yard are dragonflies, and I see a blue one and a green one flitzing together. My older sister had blue eyes. My younger sister had blue eyes. My older sister had green eyes. So when I see them together, I know that it's my sisters. But the thing about the fairies is they come in, they navigate, they come in with, I've seen them, where they separate. I saw one come in on a monarch butterfly, and it separated, and it literally looked like an orzo dangling in the air, as if like a maggot got stuck on a spider web dangling there. But it was self-propulsing, and it was colorized the same as the monarch butterfly, the orange and black, and the colors with that. And it would hover there, but it could move like a helicopter. It could go up and down and quickly move in any direction within a split second. Once the monarch butterfly landed wherever it was supposed to, the fairy took off. So fairies do not have wings; they self-propulse in some way. So they are present and in the gardens. But the thing is that particular night where the house was full of fae, my son was giggling because he decided to go up. We gave them permission to look through the house, and they're like, wow, we've never been able to be in a house like this before and be able to ask questions, like what a fork is and what those things are. So they were like little kids, and I could feel one sitting up over my shoulder with its feet dangling, on me. And my son went up to look at his computer, and he started to play a video game on it. And they're all like, wow, they're kind of like sitting on top, because he had a computer with the stack on top, and they kind of sat on top of there and were watching and peeking over things, and they were curious about things, and they were pushing around the cat's balls and the things like that, curious about playing with them. And I felt so honored in that moment to be able to be trusted enough to step into that realm with that house. So he travels with me. Bryan is a witness to that. A lot of people have seen him. He's actually evolved into something much more magnificent, because kind of like his heart opened. And when his heart opened, he didn't stay so much in that form that he was in, because his frequency elevated, because he was filled with love. So, and that's another thing too. Christian religion has demonetized the Fey realm so badly. And the truth of the matter is that they have emotions the same as us. They grieve loss. They have sadness. They have anger. They have happiness. They have joy. They have the capacity to love. Demons don't have the capacity to love. They don't have joy. They aren't happy. So these things cannot be demons. And part of the confusion is the fact that Lucifer, which is really something separate from Satan in my belief, was the most beautiful angel. He was God's favorite angel of music, very intelligent. Of course, he took things into his own hands and got kicked out. So he was also over the Fae and the elementals and the fairy realms. So when he got kicked out, just aimlessly, like the Hatfields and the McCoys and the Democrats and the Republicans, you followed your team without question. And they're realizing that was a mistake, and they're coming back away from that now, and actually having to make sacrifices themselves for that type of thing. But they are coming back to help us. I mean, I've learned so many things, and I think I told you about the seed thing. Bob told me that when you're planting seeds, especially vegetable seeds, if you expectorate on that seed before you put it in the ground, the seed has the ability to analyze your body. And if you have a deficit anywhere, when you plant that seed, the vegetable or item that you're going to be eating, that you're growing with it, will nourish your body where you're lacking anything, because it analyzed and it grows. And yes, wingless fairies, they do not have wings. Humans put wings on them back in the Elizabethan period. Anyway, it sure does, Lynn, a dangling orb. Yeah. But when you see them more solid, they look like a piece of rice or orzo, a little bit bigger than a piece of rice. They're a little bit more filled out than that, but they do dangle. They have that cylindrical, is that right? Cylindrical, you know what I mean? That cylinder kind of shape to them, and kind of a rounded bottom and a rounded top. And they do. But I mean, I've learned so many things. He talks about Bigfoot. I asked him, I said, what is Bigfoot? And he said, Bigfoot is not an alien or a human. He's kind of in a class by himself. He said he does travel throughout the universes galactically, and he has come to the point where he is able to elevate his frequency on demand, which cloaks him. So you can be standing right next to him and he can be cloaked and you won't know that he's there. He also manipulates the portals between the dimensions and has learned to do that. He is a very, very high frequency being, and he really has to dumb down a lot when he comes into physical form where we can see him when they're on this earth. He talked about Jesus. He said that he was there when Jesus was placed on the cross, and that the nails were not through his hands, they were through his wrists. And he went on to say too that he was about a little taller than me. I'm 5'9", so actually I think I've shrunk an inch. So he was like 5'10", 5'11". He talks about his beautiful hair being the soft brown color, but because the light shines from within it, it almost has a little bit of an orange, reddish tint to it. He said that his skin color is Middle Eastern, and that there was something very unique about Jesus, that Jesus' eyes would be this beautiful soft brown color, and it would shift to a sapphire blue. In between, it would flex back and forth, this beautiful sapphire blue and this brown, which I thought was interesting. I mean, there's so many things that he told me about, the crystalline cities in the water. Yep. And that are just, oh my God.
Something that was interesting before we continue, when you said the fairies, it always reminds me of, during COVID, we wanted to get out. So I took him to the mountain, which is actually near where my friend's service was. And my youngest is a ham. So, I'm like, hey, picture time. And she posed. And I saw this thing. I as a paranormal investigator, I take 3 photos in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Always. Even now I take them. Boom, boom, boom. Because you want to see if there's movement or something that's not there. That's why you do it. Mm-hmm. So I took the pictures and I looked and I'm like, what's that? And I zoomed in on the I'm like, oh, my eyes wide. I couldn't reveal it because she would get, nervous. But This is what landed on my daughter's finger. So I'm going to share it with you. And that was it. It should pop up any second. Let's give it a moment.
Oh, look at that.
Yep. And it has structure. If you zoom in on it, there are eyes and there's it looks like Jiminy Cricket.
Isn't it beautiful?
It was an incredible, well, she's kind of special to begin with in other ways. If anybody was going to get it, would be her or me. And yeah, that was really, really a magical moment.
Oh, I'm sure that it was.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
speaking of that, my sister, prior to her passing, noticed these aqua colored orbs, and people can't say that it was a camera fluke because it was during the nighttime. So there wasn't really anything for it to reflect off of. And she would see it with her own eye. And I have pictures of these too with her own eye. And she would run in and she'd get her camera out, and she'd start taking pictures. She even took a video of one coming from the sky. And I have this where it landed on the ground in her yard and started to get bigger. And it literally, you could see the being inside of this, almost looked like it was on like this bike thing that was inside of this orb as it started to enlarge. And then of course she got scared and ran in the house. But she saw this on like 3 or 4 different occasions. The first 2 times she just ran in the house because she had spooked her, she didn't know what it was. The second time she kind of watched, and the third time she kind of watched and got out her phone. And then the 4th time she got out her phone again. The 3rd time she had to run in and get her phone. The 2nd time she actually had her phone with her. So she was able to take pictures at different times. At different times of these things as well.
oh, I think it's almost no. One of my friends asked if my daughter's a starseed. I said no, she's a pain in the ass, but I love her.
We all have a little bit of starseed in us, by the way.
Yeah, so. we do. We're running out on time, but I would love to invite you back because there's tons more, especially when other books come out and you have the key to the castle. I mean, just call me whenever, like seriously, I'm not kidding. And I'd love to have you back on, but what's going on? Like, what's for summer? Like June, July, August, what do you have going on? Even September?
For summer, I'm at an event this weekend, and it's dark and creepy, something con, I just forgot the name of it. I'm sorry. It's in Seneca. It's going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm a speaker there. Also, that thing that I had mentioned to you in the beginning about the radio show. Oh, sorry.
In the South Carolina that you're talking about?
No, I will be in I'll be in South Carolina for that event. I was just in one for Georgia. I am currently streaming on Gaia with George Norrie on Beyond Belief. Also, I was just on WYFF news program that they do as well out of Georgia, out of Augusta. My book, the 3rd book in the Omnipresent series, it'll be my 5th book out of total, is coming out as we speak. I mean, within days of right now. I'm just tweaking one more thing on the cover because I found out I can't put the 111. So I'm going to have to take that off so that I don't get sued by the people that own the apartment building, because the apartment building's on the front. So, and then I'm in the process of writing the 4th book in the Omnipresent series, which is No Place Like Home, which I had mentioned. There'll be some other books off. I'm also going to be writing some children's books, touching in with, about rocks and things like that, and that you respect things that way.
Right.
So, and Bob is going to be a little cartoon character in that as well. But I've got some things with booking some things with Coast to Coast coming up here pretty soon. I went and saw George Norrie, and I was in Charlotte when George Norrie was there, and so I'm waiting for them to reach out to get me back on that. And also with Ground Zero, they've asked for a female host, and I'm going to be I've been asked to do that towards the end of the month.
That's a big honor.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is a big honor. So I'm absolutely thrilled. They're fixing that up towards the end of the month. I'll know more about that, but they're supposed to be engaging with like 600 radio stations and things like that. And they're starting.
That's great.
Yeah, they're starting this podcast thing. So I'm going to have you on my show. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and
Mark
I'll
Eddy
have
just
Mark.
wrote a book.
Mark, I'll have Mark on my show too. And
Thank
now
you.
he's part of the family now. So,
Yes, he is.
yeah, yeah. Everything is true, people. I'm
So
telling you. Go ahead.
I'm
I'm sorry.
still. I know you got a lot going on, but I still would love to see you in Gettysburg. That's all I'm gonna say
You know what?
because
I am in Florida. I will be in Ocean Ridge for a week from the 13th to the 17th, and the Gettysburg Bash is that following weekend, right?
yeah, I believe it's like the last weekend in the month. I'll tell you exactly what day it is. I wish I got invited by Bryan Singh, who's doing the
Mhm.
full disclosure conference, um, and to be there because I do some stuff. It's the 24th. Well, it really starts Friday the 25th, 26th, and 27th.
Okay.
If you can
Well,
make it, if
I
not,
will
I'll
I
just
will I will put this out here because everything's probably booked already or getting booked. If anybody is doing like a group thing where they're renting like an Airbnb or something and they need that third wheel for a final room, if maybe somebody backed out or something, let me know. And if I can do it, then I'll jump in and take that spot, which is kind of what I did last year. But yeah, I will definitely check into it because I've got a lot of things coming together the end of the month, such as that podcast thing with the
right. So you may be
yeah.
booked, but I just want people to have an opportunity to come out and actually meet you. She's got. It's not only the book; she also has other great items and things of importance that she has on her table. And
I have Bob dolls.
yes, so but yeah, I would love to just to meet up again, and hopefully Cisco gets to do to
Yeah,
be there. And of course, this is one of our friends, Carlito from Cryptid and Paranormal Kingdom.
I
But
know Carlito.
apparently, you were at the Golden Corral once again, staying too long, brother, because the show is over. Oh
Hi,
man, I love you.
Carlito.
Yes.
Yeah, Carlito, I've got to reach out to you to get on your show, have you on, have now that I'm going to be starting to book for the June thing. Also, what I mentioned to you is I'm finishing right now my class for the Mace Energy
Oh
program.
yeah, please tell about that. I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Just really, really quick. What it is with the medical field, they deal with physical, mental, and sort of the emotional. Everything's a pill, but they don't deal with the energetic field, the spiritual energetic field. And people are like, well, what is that? Well, how many times have you heard somebody say, if my dog likes them, then I like them too, because the dog is picking
Yep.
up on the energy of the person. This is what I'm dealing with. Or, like, for instance, if people say, that person just pushes my buttons. Well, what the mace in a nutshell does is it clears the buttons off. So nobody can push your buttons anymore. It's a
Yep.
new type of counseling that you may only need one appointment and you don't have to divulge your guts. You don't have to tell me what's going on, but you have to be ready to release. And it really, really works. I've had it done for me. It is totally blows my mind, some of the things that it's done for me, which will take another whole show to explain.
We'll
But
have
the
you back
thing,
to talk about it once you start doing
yeah,
what you're doing.
that'll be the yeah, like the end of July. I'll be starting to practice that, but it helps with post traumatic stress, addiction. It clears stuff. And what it does is that once those buttons are cleared, it makes you react differently to people, so people react differently to you, all for the good. It doesn't take memories away because you can't
Right.
unsee something, but it makes you react differently. Like, for instance, I had just real quick, I had a traumatic occurrence in my life with my family, and instead of reflecting back on that as if I'm in that room while the violence is happening with that flight and fright mode, it's like I'm looking from a window in a safe space, and I'm looking through the window watching it happen, saying, oh, well, that's awful that it happened, but I don't get that anxiety and that
Right.
need to run mode. And it works for somatic issues. And hopefully it's the new way that things are going to be going, because it's the one area that doctors neglect, and it helps people to heal themselves. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm
That's
looking forward to
awesome.
doing that.
Mark needs some work.
We all do.
Yeah,
We all do. I didn't think that I did, and
We
then
all.
it blew my mind. Blew my mind.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's really interesting when it comes to kids and pets. Animals love me. Kids love me. They always laugh and smile. I have a ton of people that just come up to me and tell me their problems, and I'm like, Really,
Well,
I really need this right now. But I have, everybody has their own je ne sais quoi, the
true.
lack of a better word. So
Speaking of that too, the thing that's magical, not magical, that's effective with this is because our thoughts are energy and they go into the universe, and what goes into the universe comes back to us at some point during our life. The idea of this is not to rehash all of that negativity like you would with a counselor for 3 years, because you're putting that poison back into your universe to come back at you. Who wants to have they have to go through all of the stuff that they went through with an ex or a bad episode in their life and have that repeat itself down the road?
yeah,
So that's why it's important that you don't have to verbalize it. You don't have to explain it to somebody. And I'm telling you, I'm becoming a practitioner because I've had it done for me on more than one occasion where I've gone in for touch up and say, "Hey, I had a trigger," and they fix it instantaneously, and it will blow your mind. So yeah, I have so much faith in it that I've decided to go back to school and become a practitioner. Oh, how cute is that? Is that the new baby?
yeah, he's an Australian Labradoodle, but
Oh,
I
he's
like to call him an
gorgeous.
asshole Labradoodle because
No,
he is a pain in the ass when it comes to that.
he's a
But
baby. He's a
he is the
baby.
baby. He's a bit of a baby, but
A big
um,
baby.
yeah, 10 months old and
He's
destructive.
gorgeous. He's
Yeah, he
gorgeous.
could use some of the healing too, because if we could figure out you to calm him down and tell him not to do certain things, but
Maybe you
I'm
should,
game for it, you know.
yeah, tell him, say, "You're a good boy and you're very calm," and see what happens. And over and
No,
over again. It might transfer into his energy field. You never
we
know.
we tried it. He steps up like any child would and whatever. I showed my teeth. I flipped them. I alpha rolled them, and he's like, "Whatever you want, big guy, I'm yours." And he just stood by me. It just takes time, like different disciplines, or whatever. But
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough, Lynn, for coming on.
Oh, thank you
I
so
can't thank
very much for
you. I
having me.
mean, you're amazing. I've one of the greatest people I've met
Oh, thank you
in my
so much.
lifetime. My life is better because of you.
Oh, how
More
sweet is that?
interesting
Thank you.
too. I'm not going to let you ever pick any real estate. Um, but matter of fact, let somebody else look at the house before you get in there. I have an
Absolutely.
idea. Cisco, come on out, fly her out, or whatever.
That's right.
Like, go
She
check it out because she's not playing around. She's like, no, fuck this. We're not going
No,
in here.
she will
Yeah.
open a can of whoop ass too, that's for sure. And thank you so very much for having me, Mark. It's a pleasure meeting you as well. And yeah,
We'll have to
anytime.
keep talking.
Yeah,
Yes.
I,
definitely
I have
appreciate
some
this so very
ideas for
much.
you.
Oh, good.
Yes. No, he's Mark Eddy Productions. Mark's not only
Oh,
an extremely intelligent gentleman, charismatic, and an author, but get in touch with him. It may be very beneficial for you, and works. So he can get you guests, and it's a good thing. It's Mark
I would
Eddy.
love that. Thank you so very much. I would,
Yep.
and again, it's a pleasure. And thank you so much for having me. Always, it's a pleasure. And
Well, I can't thank you enough. I made a mistake, folks, in May. My
oh,
life
don't even
is
bring that up.
no,
Nobody,
but my life
nobody
has
knows
been
about it.
talk
It's
about
okay.
I need all these I need this healing or whatever it is because things have just been whatever crazy and a true a true friend or family member is one that's like, yeah, I got you, don't worry about it. So I was just honored to have you on. I'm
Oh,
still trying
thank
to get
you.
Cisco on, but there's a whole that is, I'd have to do a Monday show or something. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, she's real busy. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. I love her.
but
Oh, and I am on her show the last Sunday of every month. I'm going to
yep,
be on Michelle Brandenburg's show the first Sunday of every month. So as a regular guest and or well, in case of Cisco, sometimes guest, sometimes co-host. So yeah, got some
yep.
things going.
And I can't thank you again, and I can't thank everybody in our live chat, otherwise
Yes,
known
thank
as
you.
Third Eye Tribe. Let's see what I forgot who coined that, but I like that, and we're gonna keep the Third Eye Tribe going. Um, please check Lynn out. Please go to lynnmonét.com, get a book, um, and the latest one is going to be bought through her. So don't do the online stuff, the scammy stuff that goes on there. Buy it through Lynn, and if you're in the U.S., have her autograph it. I love autograph copies. Worst comes to worst, Lynn, if anybody overseas, you can do an author plate, sign it, and then they can stick it in the book if they buy it online through, or whatever means.
That's an excellent idea. Some of my things are on Amazon, but I think Amazon makes enough money and they really don't credit the author very much. So
at all.
There are some books that are also just on my website that Amazon doesn't have their hands on. So
and Lynn gets, she put the hard work in, not Amazon, and she could sign it for you, but she could also sign an author plate. And you just get a sticker and put it in there, to Mark Eddy. Thanks for keeping your clothes on this episode. Lovely. It's an inside joke. But thank you. And we close it out with a go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, it could be, the reincarnation of Wiener Man or what.
It
could be. But I wish I had.
We'll
I
save
think
that
I
for my other show.
I'll send them to you. You can forward them to Mark. And I'm sure Mark and I will please feel free to give all of my phone number, whatever he needs to reach out to me. Mark, if you do decide to call me, please text me first so that I know that you're not a scammer or a stalker, and I'll answer my phone.
What we're going to do is I'm going to connect you through Messenger, and then you two can handle the rest of it, because it's like I will never go in a woman's purse ever. No, just go in there. I'm like, no, I'm not going in there. But again, like I ended with one of my songs, if it was for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. I think next week, I have no idea what the date. I don't even know who the guest is. No, I'm going to be on Brent Thomas. Brent Thomas is going to come on, and then I'm going to be on his show. So that's next Wednesday, and it should be like 4 hours of chit chat and fun. And then we have at the end of the month, we have Krista and Brandy from Blondes and Booze. And if you're going to the Crossing, they're great. Crossing Realms Conference this September 19th, 20th, 21. Vendor spots are still open, and it's in Richmond, Missouri. And I'm going to tell you this, as someone who's been to these conferences, they're $75.
Oh, I want the information on that, because I will show up for that one.
I will send it to you. $75. I'm going to be presenting. I may do readings, and I'm definitely giving out free hugs. Okay.
Do you think that they would need any other speakers or presenters? Because I kind of
they may. They have a lot down there, but I don't want to speak for them. But let me give you the information, and then we'll get that going on.
And maybe I'll just go and meet them, and then it'll all work out. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I wish I could stay longer. I don't want to take any people away, but I'm getting the eyes because I'm doing this in my kitchen with this lovely freaky background that I created the other day. But blessings, Lynn. Mark, we shall talk again. Hit the thumbs up and like buttons. Share, it makes a great Father's gift, this show. I'm just going to sell it.
And don't forget the notification bell.
Yes, notification. Good night, everybody. Have a blessed week.
It's always been you. God showed me you. I have been searching decades for you. I found you, I lost you. My heart is broken without you. My soul aches for you. I need you, I want you. My days are filled with you. I've seen the future with you. My home is with you. I have felt the future with you. My nights are filled with you. Love is you. True love is you. My happiness is you. Every past life is with you. My dreams are filled with you. Life is meaningless without you. My future is with you. I will fight for you. I will defend you. I will give up my life for you. Whatever it takes for you. Nothing else matters but you. I love you. I love you. I love you. God showed me you. I have been searching decades for you. I found you, I lost you. My heart is broken without you. My soul aches for you. I need you, I want you. My days are filled with you. I have seen the future with you. My home is with you. I have felt the future with you. My nights are filled with you. Love is you, true love is you. Love is you, true love is you. My happiness is you. Every past life is with you. My dreams are filled with you. Life is meaningless without you. My future is with you. I will fight for you. I will defend you. I would give up my life for you. Whatever it takes for you. Nothing else matters but you. I love you. I love you. Life is meaningless without you. My future is with you.